Mel Albin. I'm the host and the founder of the Jazz Confusion Power
My name
Hour.
is Dion Parson, and I'm honored to share my passion of music with you, our listening audience, through my cultural heritage.
Things can change for you too. If you want to be brand new, that is absolutely possible.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Jazz Confusion Power Hour. I'm your host, Mel Albin. I'm the founder of the Power Hour, and I want to just tell you a little bit about the Power Hour and about Source Radio Network before we bring on our special guest for this week. The Power Hour was created so that you get to know not only the music and the current charting success of many of the artists we have on the Power Hour, but you also get to know the musician, the artist, him or herself. And this is interesting because you can only hear the story about how they came to make the music that you love so much, but you get to know a little bit about the process of what it's like to really be a studio artist and a touring artist, and what are some of the things that they do in order to become successful and for you to enjoy listening to them live and also in recordings. So the Power Hour broadcasts on the Source TV radio network. We stream in 4K and Dolby True HD. We're the only radio station in the US that streams in Dolby True HD. In addition, Source is a nonprofit radio station. We support jazz, and also we support Black micro businesses that are really 95% of all the Black businesses in the United States, but they're too small to be on Amazon or Shopify. They don't get any airtime. So we want to help build scale, and we want to help so they can get on the finance industry's radar and ultimately create an increased generational transmission of wealth, assisting communities to have not just equality, but also equity. So we depend on listener contributions since we're a 501c3, and we also depend on artists who appear on our shows and mutual support and sponsors to cover the cost of broadcasting. So any contribution that any of you want to make to the Source is greatly appreciated. And remember, they're always tax deductible, and we always play jazz 24/7. The Power Hour has had over 125 amazing artists, all well-known and becoming well-known musicians and vocalists. Some of the artists in the Power Hour have included Eric Roberson, Mesa, Brian Culbertson, Paul Brown, Raheem DeVaughn, Reagan Whiteside, Alex Harris, Greg Adams, Tom Brown, Costello, Pieces of a Dream, Kamasi Washington, Keiku Matsui, Kim Scott, Sheryl Crow, Billy Ocean, Annie Lennox, Dwelle, Costello, Marie Antoinette, Jay Brown, Miss Monet, Julia, Blake Aaron. I can go on and on. And we've had just an amazing array of artists on our show. We've also had Jeff Beck and Eric Burden. So when you tune into the Power Hour, you're going to get the finest in jazz and also jazz crossover into R&B and soul too. Tonight is no exception. We have an amazing, another wonderful singer, songwriter, band leader. Her debut album with Songs of Love and Freedom garnered her a 2019 Wammie Award for Best Soul Album and was named Best New Soul on Bandcamp by the Bandcamp editorial team, who described the project as simply timeless and modern. In her 2019 release, landed the first SoulTracks Readers Choice Awards nomination for Female Vocalist of the Year and a 2020 Indie Soul Music Award for Best Female Artist of the Year, and a 2020 Wammie Award for Best Soul Song. The project was also named Best New Soul on Bandcamp by Chaka Grier of the Bandcamp editorial team, who praised her ability to blend top-notch songwriting and thoughtful self-reflection with a gentle jazz-influenced sound. She's been featured at the Essence Festival of Culture, the Capital Jazz Fest, the Atlanta Jazz Festival, and DC Jazz Festival. She has performed multiple times at the legendary Blues Alley and Apollo Music Cafe, and as well as the Kennedy Center, the Hamilton, the Howard Theater, and the biannual, Mompox, Columbia Jazz Festival, and also invited to the U.S. Embassy. Her eagerly anticipated continuation of her critically acclaimed Awakening Part 1 Now Part 2, released in late 2023 or early 2024. I'll have to have the artist confirm which one it was. The album interweaves her life experiences with an inspiration from the book All About Love by Black feminist writer Bell Hooks. She's open for award-winning jazz and soul artists Gregory Porter, Jose James, and Mesa. R&B stars Johnny Gill, Kenny Lattimore, and Elle Garnered. Folk artist Becca Stevens, and alternative soul pioneer Bilal. A previous special guest on the Power Hour. Her recent appearances include the Keystone Corner in Baltimore, Maryland. So please welcome back our special guest for this week, Cecily. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I don't know if you heard my long introduction of you.
I did.
Okay.
Thanks.
I tried to cover everything. Is your recent Part 2 Awakening, is that the end of 2023 when you released it, or 2024?
So Awakening Part 2, the full album came out July 26, 2024. So it's
That's what I
just
thought.
under 3 months old. The first single came out late 2023, so we've been
Okay.
building up to it, but the full album came out this July, yeah.
Okay, then I got it right. I said 2023 and 2024. I wasn't sure exactly which, but I'm glad I got it right. Well, let's start off, Cecily. Why don't you tell everybody what's cooking? What have you been doing lately? What are you doing for the rest of 2024, and what's going on in 2025?
Yeah, so I've been promoting the album, which has been going well, and getting a lot of good response and a lot of international support, which has been awesome. Just before I came on, I checked my email and I saw that I got my first order for the vinyl from Hong Kong. So I was like, oh, wow, people are listening everywhere. So that's really awesome. So that's been good. And what did I do? This summer, I spent about 3 weeks doing a teaching artist residency in St. Croix, the U.S. Virgin Islands, which was really awesome. Doing work with students in schools around meditation and using singing as a healing tool, not just obviously for like making music and performance, but just to enjoy the vibration of singing. And that was really beautiful. And since I've been back, I've just been getting back into the flow of things. Like you said, I performed at Keystone Corner. I recently performed at the Rosalind Jazz Festival in Virginia. And coming up, I am going to be this weekend, October 12th, I'm going to be in Richmond, Virginia, doing a free show at the Richmond Night Market outdoor show. So people can come out, bring your families. It should be lovely. And October 19th, I'm going to be doing a short performance as part of a education expo in Buffalo, New York, hosted by radio station WUFO, which has been supporting my music a lot, which is wonderful. And I'm really excited that I'll be performing for the very first time in the UK, in London, on November 10th. So I'm really excited about that. So that's kind of what's taken me through the end of the year. And looking forward to next year. I do have a few dates at the top of the year that haven't been announced yet, but they will be soon. But I am really excited because I'm kind of working on a remixes album for this project here, the Awakening Remixes. So I'm hoping to put that out at the top of 2024.
Wonderful. Okay, we got a busy schedule. Where are you appearing in the UK, in London?
Yeah, in London, I'm gonna be at the Pizza Express
Pizza
Live
Express. Yeah.
in Holborn. So yeah, very excited about that. It's a really nice intimate venue. So I'm looking forward to hopefully having a sold out show and singing for all my fans over there for the very first time.
And when is that?
That is Sunday, November 10th. So almost exactly a month from now.
Okay. Are you going to do any other appearances in London, or just that one?
We'll see. I think that's going to be my only performance. I might do some in-studio performances or maybe a signing at a record store. We'll see. Things are developing, but for right now, that's going to be my show, that big show over there.
Wonderful. That sounds great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, look, let's talk a little bit about. I want to give your fans and people who aren't familiar with your music an understanding of how you came to be Cecily. How did you develop your style, your genre? Was there music in your family? And I know you were a DC resident. So if you could talk a little bit about how your family influenced your decision or your calling in music, and
Mhm.
how the city of DC had an impact on your musical taste.
Yeah, so my no one else in my family when I was coming up was a musician. Um, but my family is very much inspired by the arts and very art centric. So neither of my parents were artists, but they somehow all four of their children ended up being artists. So I think that says a lot about their
Yeah.
their parenting style. So we were always surrounded by art. Lots of art. They're art collectors, like visual art. So the house kind of looked like a gallery growing up, just art everywhere, which I loved. I still love that. And I'm trying to get my own house to be like that, but I don't have the money yet to buy all that art, but I'm working on it. But my sister, she's a dancer, and my brother is a visual artist and now also a music producer. So we were always kind of just involved in the arts. And I think that the main thing my parents did was give me that freedom to explore that aspect of myself and to not feel any shame about it, to not feel like it can't be a career or create any fear around, following my passion as a career, which is really beautiful because I know a lot of people don't have that kind of freedom. Their parents don't give them that freedom. My parents, as it says in my bio, my parents had a really beautiful music collection, a really great record collection, which now I've inherited. You can see behind me, actually, that
I see it.
case back there is full of vinyl. I haven't counted yet, but I think there's at least 200, 300 of them. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so I grew up around a lot of music, and my parents, they both went to college and met each other in the 70s. So they both loved a lot of 70s soul music, and so that kind of became just the foundation of what I do. Like that's what I grew up listening to. So that's what I really love. And my dad was really a jazz head. He loved Miles Davis and Ahmad Jamal, John Coltrane. And my mom, she loves Motown, like, Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder, all of that. And then what they had in common was they both loved that 70s soul music. So Minnie Riperton, Gil Scott-Heron, Terry Collier, who is not as well known, but is one of my very favorite artists, Terry Collier. The way he blends like folk and jazz, I think is really beautiful. And so that's kind of what I grew up on. And so that's when I started to make music, that's what I found myself drawn to was those sounds, and that style. And that's what I kind of leaned on. In terms of the influence of DC, I think DC is a very artsy city. Like, I think it's known for being, a political city, obviously, but it's a really artsy city. And I feel like, especially in the 90s, I don't know, maybe that's just because that's my time when I grew as a kid in DC. But, there was just always like artsy stuff to do. And I think also, I think of DC as a live music city. I think particularly because of the influence of go-go. Like, if anyone's not familiar with go-go,
Yeah.
that is a art form, a musical art form native to DC that started in the late 70s. And it's a kind of funk music, but it's all live. Like, it's live instrumentation. Like, you'll hear horns, congas, drums, keyboard, guitar, everything in there. And so I think because DC has that grounding in go-go, which is a live musical form, you kind of get that. uh there's a lot of great just musicality in the city because of that, because when kids are young, they're like, oh, I want to play an instrument. So I think that growing up in DC gave me just a lot of exposure to art, which is a beautiful thing to have.
Wonderful. When Go-Go came along, I remember Sly Stone, Sly from Sly and the Family Stone. He said, "That's me. That's my music." And
Yeah,
there is,
it's funk music. It's funk
yeah,
music, yeah.
yeah, it's very similar. A lot of it's very similar to what Sly was doing musically too. But
Mhm.
he felt that he was ripped off.
Well, I think what made go-go interesting, or like kind of develop in its own way, is like Chuck Brown, who they call the godfather of
Right.
go-go,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
His whole thing was in the late 70s when DJs started to become more popular. The DJs could keep the music going the whole time. There was never an end to the song. They go right
Right.
from one song into the next. And so his thing was, okay, how do I do that? How do I keep the people dancing as a live band so that the song never really ends? And so he said, we just keep the beat locked in. Like we'll keep the beat, the pocket going the
Yeah.
whole time. And that's kind of how it developed. And then just the call and response element too,
Right.
and that's kind of like, I feel like the foundations of the music.
Wonderful. That's great. What I really found is a lot of artists, when they go through an interview, nobody really asks them about their city of origin. People raised in Chicago just know Chicago blues.
Mhm.
People who've raised in New York, that's where a lot of hip hop started. So
Mhm.
the city that you're raised in has a lot to do with your musical taste, much more than people usually talk about
Mhm.
during the development. So yeah, DC, I know because I'm in DC now, like you are. And, DC is a musical mecca, and so is Baltimore for that matter too. DC
Mhm.
and Baltimore are so close together. There's so much music between the two cities. So tell me,
Mhm.
later on, did you pursue music and after public school? Did you go to study anywhere?
Well, I actually in school, when I was in high school, I did music kind of like as my main extracurricular. I took voice lessons. I was in three different choirs. I was singing all the time, but I actually didn't want to do music as a career. I didn't come to that until I was already in college. So I went to college to study political science because I thought I wanted to work in international relations. I always want to be a diplomat. And when I got to college and I started studying international development and economics and all of these things, I realized that I did not want to do that. That it wasn't a good fit for my personality. And I've always been a very purpose driven person. And what dawned on me was that what I really wanted to do was just find ways to bring people together. Like that's what I wanted to do in terms of like diplomatic work or peace building work, right? What I was studying. And then I could do the same thing with music. I could bring people together and I could share the messages that are important to me. And so I kind of just pivoted. And when I was in college, I wasn't really interested in the music program there. It was very classical based. And even though I studied classical music for a long time, I knew that's not what I wanted to do with my own artistry. And so I just started kind of like trying to write more songs of my own, trying to work with different musicians that I was friends with on campus and trying to perform more as well and get used to performing more like as a solo artist. And so I got my degree in political science. I finished my degree. And then I moved home to DC and started, this crazy business of trying to be an independent artist.
Well, we're going to get back to how you began your artist career, but I want to talk about you. You have two sister albums. You have Awakening Part One, and now your latest is Awakening Part Two. I'm just curious, when you wrote Awakening Part One, did you know there would be a Part Two?
I did. That's why I called it part one because I
Well,
knew
I
there'd be
wasn't
a part
sure.
two. I knew there'd be a part two. I thought it would come out a lot sooner than it did, but pandemics and whatnot. But I'm glad that the timing actually feels just right. So, yeah, I knew there'd be a part two.
And what it's called, The Awakening. Is that a theme? Is there something about that links this music
Yeah.
songs together?
So basically, in between the years of 2015 and 2017, I read these three books that were all exploring unconditional love in different ways. And the three books were How to Love by Thich Nhat Hanh, The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz, and All About Love by Bell Hooks. And I found these books to be really life changing for me, just in terms of like my understanding of self, my understanding of how relationships are built and maintained, and my understanding of how I relate to the world in general. And so I really wanted to share what I was learning in these books in my music. And so I decided I was going to put out an album that kind of delved into some of what I thought were like the key things I was learning that I wanted to share and kind of tie them into my own personal stories. And so in the midst of trying to write this project, I realized that it was too much to put on one album. And so I decided it was going to be part one and part two. The title actually comes from a quote from Bell Hooks, and she says, all spiritual awakening is an awakening to love. And so I decided to call the album Awakening because it's an awakening to love. And so that's how I came up with part one and part two.
Are you familiar with the book, The Five Love Languages?
I am.
Okay. I was just wondering, because since you're on this theme of love, I'm not a big fan of pop psychology. I always thought that book was excellent. I thought that book was really excellent because it really talks about how people hear your love message, and they don't always hear it the way you intend it to be heard.
Yeah, I feel like any text that helps us to better understand each other and, you know, with more empathy is really helpful. And I think that book does that. It also helps you understand yourself too and what you need.
Well, I want to start off by playing one of your songs, I Am Love, since you're talking about love. Why don't you tell people a little bit about the background or the technical backstory to how this was created? And
Yeah, so this song, I Am Love, is the first single off the new project, Awakening Part 2. And this song I co-wrote with a wonderful, wonderful songwriter and pianist named Jacob Ungerleider, who I met in Richmond years ago. He lives in LA now. But so I went down to Jacob's house. This is in 2019, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. And we were just talking about different things we were listening to. And he was listening to this this one Dionne Warwick record from I think 78. And I was listening to a lot of Blossom Dearie at the time. And so we just sat and we listened to some Dionne Warwick, listened to some Blossom Dearie. And then I was like, I have this little poem I wrote that I think would be cool. Like I want to turn it into a song. And I said, here's like a little melody I have for it. And that was the beginning of the song. It kind of ended up having a little bit of that 60s, 70s vibe because that's what we were listening to. And in particular, Blossom Dearie has this one song where she has this little like sing-along part where she goes, Scooby-Dooby-Dooby-Dooby-Doo. And I just like that. I was like, I want to do a little doobie-doobie-doo in my song. So I took a little inspiration. So you'll hear, that's the first thing you'll hear in this song is doobie-doobie-doo. And my fans love that. They call it the doobie-doobie-doo song a lot.
Sounds like a Frank Sinatra song to me.
That's it. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's play the first song of the evening, I Am Love. And after we listen to that, I want to explore this a little bit more with you, okay?
All right.
Here we go. That was lovely. I love
Thank
that
you.
song.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you. I do too. It makes me happy. I like it.
it's a nice video too. Who does your videos?
Yeah, so that video and the video for Spirit Tell Me was done by a duo, producer and cinematographer team, Mansa Johnson and Minyote Kadebe, who are based in Washington, D.C.
Well, it's a very lovely video also.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy with it. The video makes me happy too.
And when did you release that song?
That song came out almost a year ago now, actually. I believe it was October 20 something. I can't remember the date now, but it came out in late October.
Okay, yeah, I've been listening to her for a while, but I wasn't really sure. By the way, everybody, if you want to hear Cecily, we have her on Source Radio all day long, 3 times a day, every day, 7 days a week, playing her music, and it's also on the BBC. So, for those of you around the world, you can always listen to Cecily on either the BBC or listen on my station, Source Radio Network. So,
Thank you.
I mentioned in the introduction well, about you being an educator. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit because I've spent most of my life in higher education, graduate as a graduate faculty member and administrator, and I know that teaching impacted how I thought about things because it made me clarify a lot of things. So as a vocalist or in music, I'd like you to talk about some of the places you taught at and how education and your artistry come together to influence you as an artist.
Yeah, so I teach voice. That's what I teach. I teach voice, and I've been doing that for about 10 years now, actually. So quite a while. And I think the main thing is teaching helps you learn better. So when you have to explain to somebody how to do something, then you actually pay more attention to, how do I do that? What's actually going on in there? And I think that teaching voice is like a very interesting thing because it's the only instrument you play that you can't see, you know? It's all based on feeling, not just listening, but feeling. And so I really love that about it though. Like that's what made me want to sing in the first place was just that I liked the way it felt. Like when sound vibration moves through your body, like it has a very healing quality. It makes you feel good. Um and so I try to connect my students to that. I think a lot of people are hypercritical of their voices, not just singers, even people who just never heard their voice recorded before their speaking voice. They're like, "Oh, is that me?" You know? The voice is a very vulnerable thing. It's something that it's also the only instrument that lives inside your body, right? So it feels like it's a part of you. So I think I really try to help guide my students through being able to critique like what they want to improve upon, right? And realize that these are specific things we can improve upon rather than being like, oh, I just don't like my voice or I don't like the sound of that. Or, because that can be very self-defeating because you aren't, essentially saying you don't like yourself sometimes when you say that. So I try to just help people through that process and allow them to be vulnerable and allow them also to like see the growth and get outside their comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah, that tells a lot about what you want to pass on to students that you work towards perfecting all the time, which is your voice. But how do the students' feedback when you listen to them? Does that make you think about your own voice and about you know how you can improve by teaching?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think I mean, because I have some students that can do some things I can't do it, and I'm like, that is so cool. But I think what's most interesting about music is that it's totally subjective, you know? Some people like voices that other people don't like. There's some voices that I don't really care for that other people love, and I know that that's okay, and vice versa, So usually when I'm listening to another voice, I don't I don't necessarily wanna listen to, like am I loving this right now, right? Because there might be somebody else who loves it. I just
Right.
wanna tell them technically, right? Okay, you could have better volume control, right? We can find more vocal fold closure that'll help you get more power, or let's get more precise with our pitches. You're a little flat, you're a little sharp, these things. Like, I just wanna give them the technical stuff that lets them have, like, a very large toolkit, and what they decide to do with the tools is totally up to them, you know?
It's interesting. There's a trombone player, Jeff Bradshaw. I don't know if you're familiar with Jeff
Mhm,
or
I
his
am.
work. Jeff was on the show, and Jeff said he was never trained formally in music. He picked up the trombone because it was the only instrument that nobody picked up in school to play. and he said that his dad, who played the trombone, told him that you should play the trombone and try to imitate the human voice. You should listen
Mhm,
to lyrics and try to play the sound of words that the artist puts out, and that should be the sound you want to try to mimic. And on the other side, scatting. Scatting, when you take the human voice, you try to match the instrument.
mhm,
So I mean, it works both ways. Musicians often learn from voices, and voices learn from musicians and different instruments. So
mhm.
it's a symbiotic relationship, and it's an interesting one, especially when you're a vocal trainer. When you train people vocally, it just makes you more aware. Even when you listen, I'm sure, to instruments, about how
Mhm,
that relates to your voice too. Because when you're putting together a song, you're arranging, you choose the instruments that you want in the music, right?
mhm.
So yeah,
Exactly.
so how do you do that? How do you decide when you're working on a song as a songwriter? How do you decide what instrumentation you want, what you want in terms of dynamics in the music? How do you make that decision?
Yeah, a lot of it is just feel like it's just through doing it for, a few years now. I could say, because I don't really play any particular instrument that well. I play a little bit of piano, but not really that great. And so usually when I'm writing a song, I end up co-writing. Like, I'll go to someone who really can play, a friend of mine, and be like, let's work on the song together. Here's the idea I have. Let's build on it. And so a lot of times what I have to do is I'll sit with the idea I have, the melody, the lyric, maybe a few chord changes, and I have to ask myself, is this a guitar song, or if this is this a keys song? Because that helps me figure out, who do I reach out to help me finish this song or to keep building it. So that's the first thing. And that usually just has to do with the energy. Usually for me, like a more mellow song, it feels more like keys, and maybe something with a little bit more bounce feels more like a guitar. That's just me, how I feel about it. And then from there, it's a lot of listening. Like, I listen to the music I love, and I figure out, what are they doing? What are the instruments that are in there? How are they interlocking? Um, like, there's some songs, I'm trying to think of, like, examples from this particular album, but for some reason, I can't think of any from this particular album. But, there's some songs I record, and, like, we'll have, good stuff going on in there, and then I'll be like, it needs an acoustic guitar, because, like, something it needs some warmth, and I know acoustic guitar, when it's, like, back in the mix, can add, like, a really beautiful warmth that, like, a lot of '70s songs, like, a lot of Isley Brothers songs do that. Like, they'll have a nice warm acoustic guitar kinda in the back of the mix, and it just makes it feel, like, warmer and fuller. Things like that. It's just, you just know, I figure it out by listening. I figure
So
out, I listen to learn, and then I figure out what each instrument is doing, like, what the purpose of it is, and then I can apply that to my own work.
so you actually build the rhythm section or the horn section or the string section. You build it as you listen to what you're trying to produce. So
Yeah.
yeah. So
Mhm.
how do you know when it's over? How do you know when you nailed
That's the real question, right?
it?
Um, mm, Sometimes you just hit the deadline and you say, "You know what? It's good enough." Because it's like you keep aiming for perfection, and then you realize there's really no perfection. There's just, like, it has to just feel right, and if it feels right, leave it alone. And sometimes, especially as artists, it's like we think in order to make it better, we have to add more, add more. And sometimes it's actually about taking away. So a
Right.
lot of times when I'm in the mixing process, when I'm listening to like as we're going through the mix, I'll be like, you know what? I actually think the keys and the guitar are competing in this very moment. Let's mute one of them for a couple bars and then come back in. Like, because I like things that feel very balanced and I like things that, um, it's at the end of the day, I'm a singer. So I like the voice to shine through. So I don't like things that are really competing for attention with the vocal, right? It has to really be balanced and it should really go in and out. Like if you listen to like a lot of like Frankie Beverly and Maze, for example, you notice that this little guitar lick that you love, it happens in between the vocal line, right? For a little interest right there. So it's just about making sure that everything is timed right, feels right, and is balanced. And I mean, once you know that, I mean, for on this project, there was one song called Domination on the Awakening Part 2. I kept listening to it and listening to it and listening to it. I was like, it doesn't feel done. It doesn't feel done. And then I was like, it needs strings.
Mhm.
So then I called in a string arranger, and obviously that costs a lot more money because, recording gets expensive, but it just needed that. And I knew it needed that for that lushness that I wanted. Whereas on another song off the project called 'Cause I Love You, it kept feeling unfinished. And then my producer was like, well, let's call in Zachary Cutler, my guitarist, who also co-wrote one of the songs on the project. He's like, let's call in Zach and let's try to add some guitar and see how it feels. And once we added that guitar, I was like, that's what it was. So I don't always know. Sometimes I have to ask people, but I just trust my instincts when I say something's not right.
It reminds me of something that I always love this quote from Miles Davis. Miles Davis was once asked, you know, how do you know how to play a particular note? He said, aha. He said, the note doesn't tell you very much. Doesn't tell you how loud you play it, how long you play it, the space between the notes. It's only a guide, but it's the artist that brings it to life and has to understand the music or it doesn't work. The
Mhm,
notes are just a guide. Doesn't tell you very much. And
mhm.
I also remembered I had Brian Culbertson on this show, and Brian was talking about how he had, like you, he had completed the song and something was just missing. And he woke up in the middle of the night and said, "A horn! It's missing a horn." Yeah.
Mhm.
But that's the way it works. It's a process of becoming. People. I know Bruce Springsteen's been known to work on one song for a full year. You know? So that
Yeah.
just tells you he's got the cake to be in the studio that long. Yeah. But
Right. Right.
yeah.
For
But
me, for
yeah.
me, sometimes I do that lyrically. Like I have a lyric, I call them filler lyrics, right? It's like I wrote something that could work, but it doesn't. For me, I also call them lazy lyrics. Some things just rhyme, but they're just not right, right? Like they could work, but it's a little lazy. Like it doesn't actually say enough. Because in songwriting, you're trying to say a lot in a little bit of time, right? So
Right.
every word has to be um like like a dart in the bullseye. Like it has to hit what you want it to hit. And if it's not hitting that, you should probably find something else. So sometimes I find myself up until studio day still trying to decide between two different lyrical lines, like which one fits better, like which one is really hitting what I like emotionally what I want to say. And sometimes I'm literally in the studio like recording and I'm still like, no, let me try this one instead.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the only way you're going to know. And sometimes you
Mhm.
have to, do it more than once. I want to get back
Yeah.
later to talking about you in the studio, but I want to play another one of your songs right now. I want to play "Flower in Winter," and I love this. This song reminded me of a love sonnet.
Hmm.
It's like poetry. That's what it felt like to me, anyway. So what inspired you to write the song "Flower in Winter"?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, almost a lot of the songs on the album started as poems, to be fair. Um, and I think you can hear that. This song is actually one of those things that came to me almost like in my sleep. I was like falling asleep, and then I just kind of heard the phrase "a flower in winter." And I was like, that's really beautiful. So I wrote that down. I wrote down the chorus, "a flower in winter, a soft touch of spring," and I was like, okay, I like that. And I just had that for about a year, that idea. And then I sat down with the co-writer, Alan Johnson, and I sang him the little melody I had come up for it, and we kind of built it from there. And then I brought in my producer, Drew Kidd, and we built it more from there. But basically, every song on the album is inspired by a quote or a theme from the book All About Love. And this particular song is inspired by what Bell Hooks calls community love, right? The way that we heal in community. And she says, very seldom do we heal in isolation. Healing is an act of communion. And so this song is really just about the healing that our friends or our loved ones offer to us and how beautiful it can be, like a flower in winter. So that's what this song is
Wonderful.
about.
That's wonderful. It's a great story. I'm glad you shared that with everybody. So let's hear Cecily's Flower in Winter. Okay.
Like a flower in winter, a soft touch of spring, a breath of relief, a new song to sing. If you hold me just like that, I think I can heal. Just tell me the truth that my mind won't hear. This moment is sacred, holy and real. This moment, you reminded me the joy I can feel, like a flower in winter, a soft touch of spring, a breath of relief, a new song to sing. Like a flower in winter, a soft touch of spring, a breath of relief, a new song to sing.
That's so lovely. We have a couple of comments from some of our listeners. Lori Kaplan, absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, Lori.
And another one we have here is from Tommy Morrison. Beautiful melody, beautiful voice.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, I mean, people are really enjoying your music. We have quite a few listeners already tuned into the station tonight. So, well, I want to I want to explore a little bit about your evolution as a vocalist. And all artists who are worth their salt evolve, and I'm sure that you are no exception to the rule. How would you describe the changes in your music from Awakening Part One to Awakening Part Two?
Hmm.
What did you learn from Awakening Part One, and what changes did you make in Awakening Part Two?
What's interesting is the songs themselves, a lot of them were written around the same time because I started writing for the project and for Awakening Part One, knowing I was going to make Part Two. And so it really just came down to which songs were ready first and which songs kind of, fit together best. And that became Awakening Part One, which was a 4-track EP dropped in July of 2019. And I was actively still kind of writing and, trying to finish songs to do part two because I was actually planning on putting it out in 2020, but things happen in 2020. And so the project got delayed and delayed, and I had some family stuff happen and it got delayed more. And then finally, I guess it was 2022. Yeah, it was in 2022. I reached out to my friend Drew Kidd and I said, "Hey, Drew, I have all these songs I wrote and I don't know how they fit together. And so will you help me like produce this album?" And so I think that was the biggest thing that was different about this project is this is the first time I've worked with like a co-producer, like co-executive producer for the whole project. I've always executive produced my albums on my own, and I've worked with producers on certain songs, but like the overall theme, structure, how everything is set up, it was kind of just my decision making. And so on this project, working with Drew, it was really great to have like a partner in everything to say, how do we figure out the sequencing? And what transitions do we need to have here? Does this need to have an interlude? How do we make these flow into each other well? And just like the album making aspect of it. In addition to, he also produced some of the songs, like he produced A Flower in Winter, he produced I Am Love, and, kind of helped me figure out like where the references were leaning and all of that. So that was an evolution for me just to kind of like trust somebody in that role.
Maybe I maybe I missed it, but why did you feel for this project you needed that, not prior projects?
So for this project, I had written a lot of different songs with a lot of different people, like as co-writers.
Right.
Like Flower in Winter was co-written with Alan Johnson, amazing jazz pianist based in DC. 'Cause I Love You, I wrote with my friend Jenna Camille. Domination, I wrote with Zach Cutler. I Am Love, I wrote with Jacob. Spirit Tell Me, I wrote with Messina. So there was just a lot of different songs with a lot of different influences. And I couldn't quite figure out how they fit together. And I just needed some help on making it feel cohesive. And so he really helped me a lot with the cohesion element of it.
So most of your songs co-written.
Yeah, almost all of my songs are co-written. I usually come with like a vocal melody idea, maybe a few chord changes, and we kind of build from there.
Wonderful. Okay. And I'm learning about how you go through your music also. You know, I'm curious. You've been in this business for a while now, and when you look around at jazz artists today, who would you consider among young jazz artists? Who would you consider innovative?
Okay, so I'm gonna mention some local people, if that's okay. So there's a friend of mine. I think he's still in his 20s. He's younger than me. He amazing, amazing jazz trumpeter named Brandon Woody. Um,
That name.
Yeah, he's starting to grow. I'm seeing him perform more like, out of town and traveling more. So, Brandon Woody is awesome. He has a lot of power, but it is always in the right place, if that makes sense. So seeing him perform is really like it's very moving, it's very experiential, him and his band. So I really love Brandon Woody, and I'm trying to think of other young jazz artists. There's, a brother and sister, uh, who are from Baltimore, um, the Dorseys. The sister's name is Eben Dorsey, sax player, and she's awesome. I've seen her perform with Jose James. She just performed with another friend of mine, Aquia Allrich, and, really, really beautiful musician. So those are some names that come to mind for me, and I'm always listening to my friends too, who are my age, but I still think we're, like, up and coming in the game, like my good friend Christy Dashiell. She's, like, one of my very favorite voices to listen to, so, yeah.
Yeah, along the same line, I'm just curious when I think of fairly young, innovative musicians. I think of Jean Baptiste, and I don't. Have you heard his most recent Beethoven Blues?
Not yet, I actually just saw an advertisement for it, and I was like, "Oh, I need to listen
Yeah,
to that."
yeah, he's supposed to be on my show actually in December.
Awesome.
You know,
That's
but
beautiful.
yeah, but the thing is, Beethoven Blues. He's going into classical music and combining it with jazz. And
Mhm,
I think there's a lot of young jazz musicians in London who have, and Kamasi Washington's doing this too. It's linking hip hop to jazz,
mhm,
but jazz seems to be something which so many young musicians are tuning into,
mhm,
and they seem to be integrating it with other genres. Even Korean pop, they're embracing jazz, and jazz is the only true American art form. So
mhm,
to see jazz being spread around the world, and the irony to me is it's not as popular here as it is in Japan or in the UK, or in Canada, and that's our music, and it's more
mhm,
popular in other places. So when I see somebody like Jean Baptiste, it just or even um, oh, Uptown Funk. Um,
mhm. Bruno
what's his
Mars.
Bruno Mars? Thank you. Just drew a blank. They go back and sample a lot of the old R&B, soul, jazz, and they bring it to a younger audience. I think that's so needed today.
Mhm,
I think a lot of young people are bored with urban music. They don't get much diversity. So
mhm,
the kind of music you bring, and a lot of young musicians in their early 20s, that they're starting to really pick up more in jazz. I see jazz being more influential now than it was 10 or 15 years ago.
mhm.
It's, but
Yeah, I mean, you always hear jazz and hip hop, but I think about artists like Kendrick Lamar.
yeah,
He
yes,
To Pimp a Butterfly was a jazz album
yeah,
to me, a jazz
yeah,
funk album.
sure is.
And you hear that a lot, but yeah, I think but the thing is, like, when you think about, like, the continuum of, like, Black American music, you hear a little jazz, a little blues, and everything,
Yeah,
and
John Legend.
everything. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
even I mean, I think that, I think what you alluded to before, like it being more popular in other places, I think that's primarily a failure of the industry in the US. That's why I'm really thankful for, shows like yours, stations like yours that are promoting this music and still putting it out there, because I think that the way that the industry is set up in the US, it kinda sidelines anything that doesn't fit cleanly into, R&B, hip hop, pop, country. Like, if you don't fit cleanly into those 4 genres, even rock nowadays, I feel like is a smaller box.
yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah.
I'm really happy to still have some a lot of good radio stations that, still play this music and speak to artists like myself, so thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure, and you're absolutely right. And college stations play a lot of jazz.
Mm,
If you look at Howard University, or you look at, just a lot of the historic Black college universities that have radio stations, um, a lot of them really still play a lot of jazz, although they've moved a lot more to urban music. Let's play
mhm.
another one of your songs, and I want to talk about the title, "Clumsy." Um,
Mhm.
why don't you tell everybody a little bit about where this comes from? It's a really bluesy track, and I kind of love the vibe in this track a lot. I've listened to your music closely. And by the way, when you talk about a broad audience, the Source Radio is connected to over 16,000 affiliated stations in 165 countries. So, that's where other countries learn about jazz. They can pick up American stations now on the internet. But anyway, why don't you tell us about Clumsy a little bit?
Yeah, so Clumsy is from Awakening Part 1. And like I said, that album was also inspired by, different texts that I read. And so the title actually comes from a book called How to Love by Thich Nhat Hanh. And there was two quotes in that book that kind of inspired this particular song. One of which he uses the word clumsy. And I just thought that was such a good word, like, as a writer, certain words, they just, like, you have to say much more. They have a feeling to them. So the word clumsy is one of those words. I was like, that's a great word. So I use that as a jumping off point. And the other quote from the book that inspired the song, I almost used it word for word, but not exactly. He said, if we do not know how to love, we will wound the person that we love. And I just thought that that was like something that I really connected to, like, especially in my 20s, just whatever you go through in your 20s, making mistakes and being messy with people's, attention in ways that you shouldn't, or just not appreciating people in the way they deserve. And so that was kind of the storyline behind this song.
Wonderful. Okay, well, let's hear Clumsy. It's one of my favorites that you've done also. And this is from Cecily, Clumsy.
insecure from the start.
Just beautiful.
Thank you.
Love the lyrics. You got a whole bunch of people. I can't even put them all up fast enough. Ricardo Donato, great arrangement. The horns back up nicely, complementing your beautiful vocals.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the horns on that song too. That's one of my favorite parts of that song.
Yeah, I mean, you have some artists, some fans out there that really understand the music. Glenn is basic. It's rap without rapping. Great message.
Thank you.
I like that one. Here's another one. Mike Messina, are you planning to come to Chicago? If you are, count me in.
Oh, thank you, Mike in Chicago. I am trying to. I hope to be there next year. Yeah. You can go to my website, cecilymusic.com. That's CECILY music.com. Sign up for my email list so you'll know when I'm in Chicago.
Well, there's several more. I'll put them up, after when we get to the next song. But you have a lot of listeners who are interested in talking with you, apparently. We talked a bit about your evolution as a singer-songwriter. Where do you see your music going in 5 years from now? Do you see any changes in genre? Do you see any changes in arranging and orchestrating? Any new directions that may inspire you? Do you think about that at all?
I do. I don't think I think too much long term, but like I just applied for a grant for my next album. Hopefully I get that grant. But I had to kind of describe my vision and everything. And the next project, I think it might be a little more open, a little bit more free flowing, maybe a little bit more jazz influence as opposed to R&B influenced. And but really my thing is I really focus on energy. I really focus on the music serving the lyric. And because I love to write. I love music. I love singing. But even before I was singing, I was writing. I was writing poetry. I was writing all kinds of things. So as a little kid, I found books. So I'm writing poetry at like 5 years old. So I just love words. And so I really like to make music that serves the lyric. And I think I'm, opening myself up to just creating things that have less. I think I'm trying to figure out how to say it exactly. I love songcraft. I like writing songs, and I like kind of getting into song structure and all of those things, right? But I kind of want to give myself a little bit more freedom to just kind of exist in the song and see where it takes me,
Right.
not feel like I have to write a bridge or, whatever.
Well, it sounds like you're really moving towards more jazz.
Yeah, just a little
Jazz
bit
hitting
more
up there.
free, a little bit more
Yeah,
open. Yeah, that's how I think this next project will sound. We'll see.
wonderful.
This
Okay,
time next year it might be out, so we'll see.
that's great. If you could collaborate with any artist today, who would you really want to collaborate with?
Hmm. My go-to answer for this question is always Raphael Sadiq. I'm a huge fan of
Okay.
Raphael Sadiq. I just love his production. I love his writing. I love his writing for other people. And so that's my go-to answer is always Raphael Sadiq. I'm trying to see if there's anyone else that comes to mind that I would really love to collaborate with. I mean, there's artists that I love, but I don't necessarily know if I need to work with them. I just want to listen to them. Like I am a huge fan of Leanne LaHavis. That's like my current favorite artist. A beautiful, beautiful. I consider her kind of genreless, but I guess she's grounded in more like R&B jazz, but with a lot of like folk and rock influences. And she's from London. She's from Brixton to be specific. And I'd love to collaborate with her, but I think I'd fangirl too much to collaborate with her. So I probably wouldn't get much done. I'd just be like, "You're amazing."
I was wondering about some of the older artists like Stevie Wonder or even Sade, or, whether they would be on your bucket list to
Oh,
collaborate
I
with.
mean, I'm actually going to see Stevie Wonder on Tuesday in Baltimore. I'm really excited. Just to meet
Wonderful.
Stevie Wonder would be amazing, let alone work with him. I don't even know what I would do.
Yeah, yeah. When you think about the fact that this guy wrote a #1 hit when he was 13, "Fingertips Part 2." I mean, he was 13 years old. I mean, he's just a musical genius.
I was
Yeah,
just talking to one of my voice students today about Stevie Wonder's output in the '70s in particular.
yeah,
I was like, it was great. I mean, it's 1972, he put out 2 amazing albums. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm just trying to keep up to 1 every couple years, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's a
Oh,
genius, definitely a genius.
well, Raphael Sadiq, knowing your voice and your music is a good choice for you too. I like that one. Um,
Yeah.
so let's play the last song of the evening for everybody, and then we can talk a little bit more about how people can get in touch with you and a few other things. But I want to play "Come Home." So now this song to me, and again, I'm going to tell you what I think. You can tell me I'm crazy. This song to me is more rock than any of the other songs I heard you do.
Mm,
Because I'll tell you the reason. The chord progressions move downward, and that's
mm.
something that's very characteristic of a lot of rock music. So that's just me. It just seems it's the most rock-based song. Now you tell everybody I'm crazy and tell me what. And you tell me what you think.
Well, I was actually I feel like we talked about in terms of references for this song, we talked about Stevie Wonder and we talked about Minnie Riperton.
Right.
So we were definitely pulling more soul. And I mean, this song, it doesn't actually have it definitely has that more 70s soul.
Yeah.
Because I think the 70s soul music is kind of, you know, the only times you'll hear like no drums on a song. It'll just be
Mhm.
percussion, but it still kind of rocks, and so that's how this song ended up. We were just like, yeah, we're not gonna put drums on it. It's just gonna be percussion. It's gonna be fine. People are still gonna listen to it in 2024. And
Yeah.
luckily we were right. People are still listening to it, even though it doesn't have that, super like kick drum, kind of thing going on. But I feel like it has a groove that locks you in. And really for this song, it was actually a song I wrote because I just needed to write the song. I didn't actually intend to put it out because it was just very personal. This song is about my family and I'm really talking about the house I grew up in and all the happy memories I have in that house. But I'm the youngest of 4 and I'm the youngest by a lot. My oldest sibling is 20 years older than me. So I'm the baby. And so, when you're a kid, like life is great. You think everything's great. You think everything's going fine. And then as you get older, you realize, okay, maybe there was something here that, somebody wasn't as happy as I was. And I think a lot of families deal with separation in the family and deal with kind of like people not speaking for a few years and then eventually coming back together. And that's what this song is about. It's just about like, no matter what happens, there's love here. And so we can always come home to each other because we're home, we're family, and we love each other.
It's funny though too when you talk about you weren't going to include this song initially. Rod Stewart tells this great story for his first album. There's a song he kept insisting that they put in the album, and they kept telling him the song doesn't go anywhere; it'll never do anything. And he insisted. So they finally put it in, and the song is "Maggie May," one of his
Oh,
biggest hit,
wow.
one of his biggest hits. They didn't want to put it in. He insisted. So sometimes like "Come Home" it may be something that you didn't intend to be in here, but it works beautifully, and it's a wonderful song. So let's play now "Come Home" by Cecily, and then we'll be back in a minute.
It's a sweet porridge, hot it lasts. Some shouting, some broken glass. between your mother's arms, kiss on the cheek for an alarm, baked apples in the morning, sweet butter and cinnamon, hiding behind your daddy's legs, looking out at the world, so amazed. But his teeth fall out, and his voices deepen, the shadow of things unsaid begins to creep in. Can we forgive the oversights, so elders can bask in their grandchildren's light? 'Cause new life brings new hope, and we all need some hope to hold, to come home. Come home. Come home. Together we're home. Just come on home. Come home. Come home. Together we're home.
we have a little battle going on here. Luke Kaiser said, I agree with Mel. I hear rock, LOL. And then Lois Remus says, I agree with Cecily. It's classic 70s soul, LOL. And then Danny Collins said, I don't care if it's rock or soul. It's great.
Well, thank you guys. You know what? I think it's a little bit of everything, That's the beauty of music is it never fits quite properly into one little box. But thank you guys.
But you got a lot of people listening in. I love that song too. It's beautiful. Cecily, I want to thank you so much. It's been a wonderful evening. You taking the time to be with us tonight. And I know it's your second time. And, as soon as you're going to drop some more music, let me know and we'll have you back for a third time.
Thank you so much, Mel. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep. So, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about how they can become a fan, how they can, if they want to reach you to perform somewhere or if they want to buy your music, you can tell people a little bit about that.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, you can always go to my website, which is cecilymusic.com. And there you can find my upcoming shows. You can sign up for my email list. And if you would like to find my music on streaming services, you can just search my first name, Cecily, Cecily. Look for a pink picture of me in pink. That'll be me. There's one more Cecily on there, but I'm the one in pink. And if you would like to purchase a physical copy of the newest album or one of the previous albums, I have vinyl, I have CDs on my website. Just click the storefront page there. It'll take you over to my Bandcamp page where you can buy my albums, and I will sign them and send them to you.
Wonderful. And about the social media? How can they reach you?
Social media, so many things. Yes, thank you. Yeah, if you'd like to follow me I'm primarily on Instagram and TikTok, and you can follow me at Cecily Alexa, which is CeciliAlexa.
Wonderful. Well, Cecily, again, I want to thank you so much for being on the show tonight and for taking the time out and so people can hear your wonderful music. We had 171,911 people. Just on the station alone. I don't know which other affiliates from the 16,000 pick it up, but you have a nice audience tonight. So you got to hear your music. You must have a lot of fans out there too.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you so much, Mel, for the wonderful conversation, and thank you guys for tuning in.
Wonderful. We'll see you again soon. Okay.
All right. Take care. Okay. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Well, everybody, that was Cecily, and we have another great guest for you next week. Also, we have the wonderful Eric Darius. He is a terrific horn player, and you'll be able to see Eric on the show next week too. So everybody, be sure to come back and to watch another session of the Jazz Confusion Power Hour. I'm Mel Albin. Thank you all once again, and hoping that you tune in and listen during the week. We play jazz 24/7, and see you next Thursday. Take care. I'm Mel Albin. I'm the host and the founder of the Jazz Confusion Power Hour.
My name is Dion Parson, and I'm honored to share my passion of music with you, our listening audience, through my cultural heritage.
Things can change for you too. If you want to be brand new, that is absolutely possible.